It is 2 in the morning, you are alone, and you just heard something in the other room. Maybe it moved, maybe it did not. But your heart is already pounding, your breathing has changed, and some ancient part of your brain has gone very quiet and very alert. Now, here is the strange part. Somewhere in that same house, a dog hears the exact same sound, and the dog does not care. It lifts its head, decides nothing is trying to eat it, and goes back to sleep. The dog will never lie awake wondering what is in the dark. You will. You are the only animal on earth that can be terrified by something that is not there. And you are not alone in this. Nearly 1 in 5 people say they have seen a ghost. Maybe you are one of them. But that fear is not a flaw. It is the price of the most powerful machine evolution has ever built. Your brain is a ghost-making machine, and every grave, every ancient tablet, every haunted house in history is just its fingerprints. Tonight, we are going to watch it work. Start with an object. For 150 years, a small clay tablet sat forgotten in a museum in London, pocket-sized, covered in scratches that looked like nothing. Then, a curator tilted it to the light, and a face leaned out of the clay. A thin, bearded man, bound with rope, being dragged into the dark by a woman. 3,500 years old, the oldest picture of a ghost ever found, but the fear that carved it was already ancient. To find where it truly began, you have to go back much, much further. 34,000 years ago, humans were already burying their dead like they were going somewhere. In one grave in Russia, an old man was laid to rest under 13,000 beads carved from mammoth ivory, beads that would have taken 10,000 hours to make. You do not spend 10,000 hours on someone you believe is simply gone. Every grave like this is a quiet confession, a bet that something slips out of the body and keeps going, and that single bet opened a door that has never closed. Because if the dead go somewhere, then the dead can come back. And in almost every culture that ever lived, the ones who came back were never happy to see you. Look at who becomes a ghost in the old stories. The murdered, the drowned, the ones who died alone and were never found, the ones buried wrong or never buried at all. A ghost was rarely a gentle grandmother. A ghost was a debt the living had failed to pay. The people of ancient Mesopotamia lived with this every single day. To them, ghosts were not a campfire story. They were a fact, like weather. Spirits that grabbed you, followed you home, made you sick, whispered at night. And that tablet in London came with instructions, a recipe for getting rid of one. The diagnosis was oddly specific. This was a lonely male ghost. The cure? Find him a partner in the afterlife. Make 2 little figurines. Pour 2 cups of beer. Light incense at sunrise. And call on the god of the sun to lead the spirit down to the underworld, guided by his new companion. And the text ended with 5 words. A warning. Do not look behind you. That instinct, the feeling that something is standing just behind you, shows up in every century. In ancient Rome, a philosopher rents a house that nobody else will live in. The rent is suspiciously cheap. On his first night, working by candlelight, he hears the drag of chains. An old man appears in the doorway, rattling irons, beckoning, "Follow me." The philosopher follows him into the courtyard, where the figure vanishes into the ground. The next morning, he has that spot dug up, and there, in the earth, they find a human skeleton wrapped in chains. That story is 2,000 years old. The cheap house, the restless spirit, the body hidden below. Every haunted house you have ever seen is a remix of the one Roman night. And here is what should give you chills. These cultures never met. No ships between them. No shared language. No internet. No group chat to compare notes. Ancient Egypt, ancient China, the Amazon, the Aztecs, early Europe, separated by oceans and thousands of years, every single one independently arrived at the same idea. The dead are still here. That is not one superstition passed around a fire. That is every human brain running the same program and reaching the same answer. So, the real question was never whether ghosts are out there. It is why your brain builds one so easily. The answer is a survival system scientists call agency detection. For millions of years, our ancestors lived surrounded by things that wanted to eat them. So the brain learned one golden rule. When the grass rustles, do not assume it is the wind. Assume it is a predator. The human who mistook a tiger for the wind died. The human who mistook the wind for a tiger just felt a little silly, and lived. So, we all inherited the jumpy brain, the one that would rather invent a monster than miss a real one. It is the same system that makes you see a face in the shadows of your bedroom. Your brain finds faces faster than you can think, in clouds, in wood grain, in the dark. Because for most of history, spotting a hidden person kept you alive. But the strangest proof came from a laboratory. In one experiment, scientists built a machine that could create a ghost on demand. A person stood between two robotic arms. When they moved their own hand, a second arm touched their back, but with a tiny delay, just slightly out of sync. And something eerie happened. Around a third of perfectly healthy people suddenly felt it. A presence. Someone standing right behind them in an empty room. Two of them were so frightened they begged the scientists to stop. There was no ghost. There was only a glitch. The brain briefly losing track of where the body ends and the world begins. A crack in your sense of self. And into that crack, the mind pours a person who is not there. And you are still running this ancient program right now. Your ancestors feared a leopard in the grass. You fear a text with no preview. Your phone lights up at midnight with a message from your boss that just says, "We need to talk." No leopard, no dark forest. Same racing heart, same cold drop in your stomach. Your nervous system cannot tell the difference between a predator in the grass and an unanswered question in the dark. The ghost was always the same thing, not the dead, the unknown. But there is one last turn, because it is not only fear that summons them. When someone we love dies, the same machinery does something tender. Grieving people all over the world report feeling their lost person in the room. A weight on the edge of the bed, a voice in the kitchen, a hand on the shoulder. The brain, unable to accept the empty space, quietly fills it back in with the face it misses most. And maybe that is the real answer. We did not build ghosts because we were afraid of the dark. We built them the moment we loved someone enough to bury them. The same mind that refuses to let go of the dead is the mind that keeps hearing them on the stairs. 3,500 years ago, someone pressed a warning into wet clay, and it has waited in the dark ever since. Do not look behind you. You will not see anything, of course, but your brain will make very sure you check.